Hello everyone, this is part 35 of What If Naruto Was the Child of the Moon in Percy Jackson, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
It was a fine day, a day for celebration. But there was one person who didn't want to celebrate at all. Why, you ask? It has something to do with a certain prophecy, which was 1 year away. He could not help but feel nervous. Besides, he didn't have that many friends apart from those at camp who don't usually come anyway since they all lived in different parts of America. There was a small party at their apartment. And if I can just say, it was one of the best apartments money could buy at one of the most exclusive towers in all of New York. How did they afford that, you ask? Well, it had to do with a certain platinum card that Naruto had smuggled out of the Lotus Hotel and Casino. I could still remember the look on that snobby agent's face when payment went through. Anyway, Paul Blofeld was invited, which was okay, because somehow, through Naruto's meddling, the band incident was blamed on a certain Kelly Anderson who is now at large by the police. Something is telling me though, that she would never be found by law enforcement. Now, Percy and even Naruto would be allowed to start freshman year next month. Tyson was there too, of course he would be invited. Sally Jackson baked 2 blue cakes just for him. As he helped Sally blow up balloons for the party, Paul called for Naruto and Percy to help him in the kitchen for a while. So there they were, Naruto, Percy, and Paul in the kitchen. So Naruto, I hear the basketball team is seriously eyeing you to be on their team. Naruto chuckled nervously. I don't know about that. I haven't had any experience in sports when I was a child. I had to focus on other stuff. Come on, you'd do great. Percy cheered him on. I've seen you shoot hoops. You'd off it. Paul gave him a look of sympathy. I heard from Sally about your childhood. For what it's worth, I'm sorry you had to go through that. Thank you, Naruto smiled. I appreciate it. Anyway, that's all in the past. Now that you've had the chance to find a family and settle down, you can focus on things you like. Paul offered. You guys really think I could do it? Naruto asked. Of course, you would. You would do great. These were the responses he got. I see, I would give it a try. Naruto scratched the back of his head. And Percy, I heard from your mom that she'd be signing you up for driver's ed this fall. Percy's eyes sparkled. Yeah, I've been waiting for this for like forever. Knowing you, Percy, you might crash a car or two, Naruto joked. Hey, I resent that, Percy protested. Don't be so hard on him, Naruto, Paul lectured. He'd do fine. You really think so? Percy asked. Actually, deep inside, he was feeling nervous. With all the things he's messing up during training at camp, he was overthinking this course he was about to take. Really, dude. Joking aside, I think you would do great, Naruto told him. He's right, you know. Paul handed the 2 boys a GL of punch. He raised his own GL to a toast. To Percy's 15th birthday. The 3 tapped the glass together and drank. Naruto noticed that Paul was fidgety. The man wanted to say something, but he was nervous about getting it out. He didn't want to pressure the man, so he waited. So, I wanted to ask you something, Paul began as he was getting the courage to speak. What's on your mind? Naruto asked. Girl stuff, Paul said simply. Is this what I'm thinking about? Percy asked as well. Paul nodded. You see, your mother, I'm thinking of proposing to her. Naruto's eyes widened. He was definitely surprised, but he was happy all the same. Considering her past with Gabe Ugliano, he was happy to be married again, with someone she knows would make her happy. And growing up alone, he had a significant lack of a father figure in his life, not until he became a genin. Percy was surprised that he almost dropped his cup. But knowing what Sally had been through with smelly Gabe, he was happy. You're asking for our permission? Percy managed to say. Well, not really permission, but since the both of you are her family, I thought it would be best if I talked to the both of you man to man. He said, scratching his beard. Naruto grinned. He rushed over and hugged the older man, surprising him. I would love that, Dad. After a few seconds, Naruto broke the embrace and gave him a sheepish look. Sorry about that. You see. No, it's okay. I understand, Paul smiled. It would be an honor that you would see me as a father figure. I just hope that I can live up to your expectations. He then shifted his gaze to Percy, looking for his answer. I think that's a great idea, Paul. Percy finally said. I see how my mom is happy around you, a lot happier. You'll do great. Paul's smile widened considerably. Cheers. Let's go join the party. At the party, the guests were almost complete. All that was left was Grover, who was going to take Nico and Bianca into the building. And so there they were, our favorite cast of characters waiting for the guest list to be complete when the doorbell rang. The owners found this weird. They didn't receive a call at all from the lobby about a guest. With caution, Sally opened the door. What she saw on the other side of the door made her gasp. It was Poseidon. He was wearing Bermuda shorts and a Hawaiian shirt and Birkenstocks, like he usually does. His black beard was neatly trimmed and his sea-green eyes twinkled. He wore a battered cap decorated with fishing lures. It said Neptune's lucky fishing hat. Pose, she caught herself as she found herself blushing to the roots of her hair. Hello. Hello Sally, Poseidon greeted. You look as beautiful as ever. May I come in ? Sally squeaked, which the god took as a yes and strode into their abode. I must say, your new home is quite exquisite. Paul looked back and forth at his girlfriend and the man, trying to read the situation. Finally, he strode forward and extended a hand to greet him. Hello, my name is Paul Blofis. Poseidon raised an eyebrow. Blowfish, you say ? Paul chuckled, like he heard that joke 1,000 times before. Little did he know, the god was actually serious. No, it's Blofis actually. Oh, I see, the god was mildly disappointed. I quite like Blowfish. Anyway, I am Poseidon. That's an interesting name. Yes, I quite like that name. I have others, but I do prefer Poseidon. Like the god of the seas ? Very much like that, yes. Well, Sally interrupted, though her voice was threatening to crack. Deep inside, she still harbored feelings for her first love. Was so glad you could drop by. Paul, this is Percy's father. I see. Paul nodded, but it was evident that he did not look pleased. Poseidon's gaze shifted to Percy. There you are, my boy. And Tyson, hello son. Daddy. Tyson bounded across the room and gave the god a great big hug. Paul's jaw dropped. He stared at Sally. Tyson is. This must all be so confusing. It was Naruto who spoke up. But I promise Percy and I will explain everything when the time is right. I never go back on my word. Sally gave Naruto a grateful look. Then she spoke, calmer this time. What brings you here ? Oh, I wouldn't miss Percy's 15th birthday for the world, Poseidon chuckled. If this were Sparta, you would be a man now. Paul too had gotten over his shock. That's true. I used to teach ancient history, you see. Poseidon's eyes twinkled. That's me. Ancient history. Sally, Paul, Tyson, would you mind if I borrowed Percy for a moment ? He put an arm around Percy and steered into the kitchen. That was unexpected. Naruto spoke up. Did you invite him ? Paul asked. Sally shook her head. Oh gods no. He just dropped by out of the blue. He kept an eye on Percy even after they separated. Naruto left it at that. Although, how he found out we lived here is beyond me. I see. Naruto's answer left Paul with dozens more questions, but he trusted the boy. He believed that the boy would explain everything eventually, so he left it at that. Good evening, Ms. Jackson. Is now a good time ? The front desk officer at the lobby paged them. Yes, it is ? Sally answered. Have my guests arrived ? I have Grover Underwood, Nico D'Angelo, Bianca D'Angelo, and Zoe Nightshade here to see you, the front desk officer said. Zoe ? Naruto raised an eyebrow. The hunter was adamant about staying at camp. She did not see the importance of birthdays, being an immortal and all, so her presence here was surprising. Maybe she changed her mind, Sally said. Perfect. Let them in, Sally told the desk officer. Right away, ma'am, was the answer. Now, our guests are complete, Sally said. Now, We just have to wait for Percy to finish his talk with his father. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. They were here. Hi Ms. Jackson, Grover greeted. How are you? ? Hello Grover, Sally greeted back. Thank you for coming to Percy's birthday. And I see you brought his other friends. Hello. Hi. Were the siblings' greetings. I'm glad you could join us today. I hope that you get along with my sons, Sally said. Well, yes of course, Bianca said. He's a good friend, Nico added. She nodded with a smile and moved on to the immortal hunter. And you must be Naruto's sister. Paul's head must be brimming with questions right now, but he held his tongue. He didn't want to have a headache at this point in the night. It is a pleasure to meet you in person. Naruto has told me about you, Zoe said, offering a hand for a handshake. May I talk to Naruto for a second ? Sally nodded. There were 2 family members from her 2 boys' godly side of the family that wanted to have a word with them. This certainly worried her. Nevertheless, she nodded. Now since the kitchen was occupied by Percy and his father with their own pep talk, Naruto decided to take her to the roof of their apartment complex, with the guise of just talking in his room. The pair arrived at Naruto's Hiraishin mark that he placed up there when they bought the apartment. Naruto turned to his sister, Nei-san, what's up ? The lady has informed me about recent developments from your recent fiasco, Zoe began. The shinobi knew what she was referring to. He didn't like where this was going. This is about Mount Street, Helens, I presume ? Zoe nodded. After you set off that explosion, the volcano continues to erupt. And worse, he is stirring. Who ? Naruto asked. The father of all monsters. Zoe answered. Naruto's eyes grew to dinner plates. He held his head in between his palms and dropped to his knees. I did that ? One freed him ? Raise your head, brother, Zoe told him. The lady said that you should not blame yourself, and frankly I agree. With the upcoming war, he would be freed eventually with Kronos awakening ancient monsters and freeing his brothers from their prisons. Naruto did as his sister told him, but he still had remorse evident on his face. But still, the gods' forces barely held a candle to him when they first fought in the stories. By now, when he's eventually released, I imagine he will move straight to New York. It would be my fault if he decimates our forces and destroys Olympus. Zoe stared at him with sympathy. Do not fret. The lady says that he has around a year at best before he is fully released. We have the advantage of time. While he waits to be unleashed to the world, we can prepare. Naruto gained a determined look, his hand unconsciously moving over to the seal in his gut. In that case, I'll have to pull out all the stops in this war. Zoe knew what Naruto was referring to and it did not sound good at all. Are you sure about this ? The last time you unleashed this power of yours, you lost control. You may very well turn against your allies. I don't know if it has been done before, but the humans sealed the Biju in humans to harness their powers, Naruto explained. So it would stand to reason that there is a way to fully master a tailed beast's power. Zoe smiled proudly at her brother. I like your determination, but for now, we enjoy the party. Why don't we go get some cake? Poseidon didn't stay for the party. He had a war to fight. Percy asked him nicely to leave through the front door so as to avoid suspicion. The 2 boys had received horrible news from their talks. But that aside, it was time to party. Sally looked at the spread of food proudly. She really poured her heart into this meal. There was blue cake, spaghetti and meatballs, spring rolls, grilled chicken, and a bunch more. And of course, there were games. They started off with Monopoly. Percy got bankrupt pretty early in the game. Surprisingly, Tyson and Naruto held out the longest, but Tyson's luck didn't hold a candle to Naruto's. Next was charades. Tyson did pretty bad on this one. Instead of acting out the word they were supposed to guess, he just shouted it out loud. That earned laughs all around. They also played spy. Zoe did really well this game. She could easily tell whoever was lying and keeping their identity as the spy a secret. I guess dealing with people for 1,000 years would allow you to read people that well. Finally, there was Clue. It was absolutely unfair for the other players. Being a genius only second to his classmate, Shikamaru Nara, his ability to deduce the murderer was on point. All in all, they had fun. Sally looked at the genuine smiles Nico and Bianca were exuding. Her motherly instincts were kicking in. Somehow, she could tell, they didn't have a birthday party in a long time. She was happy she made this celebration extra special, not just for Percy, but for the guests as well, the Hades siblings especially. It was getting late into the night. Sally decided to let them sleep over that night. As the party died down, Naruto broke away from the group and went up to his room. He smiled bitterly as he stared at the moonlight. His mind couldn't help but wander off to Calypso on Ogygia. He was happy here, but what about Calypso? She's probably there, lonely, waiting for the next hero to wash up on her shore or for him to finally fulfill his promise. He brought out a scroll. In a puff of smoke, he produced the moonlace she had given him, still looking as fresh as when she first had given it to her. It hurt just to see it. The scent hurt him even more. It brought back painful memories of the time he spent with her, sharing her pain. He couldn't stand the thought of her living her life in loneliness, the way he did when he was a child. Plant a garden in Manhattan for me, will you? Calypso's words echoed in his mind. He opened the window and stepped onto the fire escape. Sally kept a planter box out there. In the spring she usually filled it with flowers, but now it was all dirt, waiting for something new. It was a clear night. The moon was full that night. Naruto planted the sprig of moonlace carefully in the dirt. Entering sage mode, he channeled the power of nature, which he found he could freely control now after Pan's blessing. The moonlace grew to its full height and glowed in response to the moon. A smile tugged to his lips. Mission accomplished, he muttered. He was broken out of his thoughts when there was a knock on his door. Naruto, you got a sec? It was Percy. He just shrugged and opened the door. It was Percy with. We left camp to go exploring, Bianca confessed. I thought it would be a good idea for her to learn to use her powers, Nico added. And we wanted to see our father's domain. That's cool, Naruto said. So you guys aren't going to be year-rounders, huh? Percy added. Wait, you're not mad at us? Bianca gaped. You're not gonna tell us it's too dangerous? Nico did the same. Why would we? Naruto said. I've seen how Nico fights. You'll handle yourself well out there. Also, you've been stranded at the Lotus Hotel for ages. Percy added. You could use the time to get around. So, what did you see? The blonde asked. Not much right now, but we saw Daedalus's trial, Nico started. Oh? The two boys' eyebrows raised, dying to know the update of the old son of Athena. Well, Minos wanted to send him straight to the fields of punishment without as much of a trial, but our father had different plans for him, Bianca said. Father wanted him to build overpass and exit ramps in the fields of asphodel for eternity, Nico explained. That doesn't sound too bad, Percy commented. It doesn't even sound like a punishment at all, Naruto said. Annabeth will be happy to know about this. And Nico turned to Percy. I know how we can match Luke once the fighting starts. Naruto and Percy looked at each other, then back at the siblings. Go on, we're listening. It was a fine day. For the beginning of the end of the world, that is. After being jealous of one certain blonde for the better part of 3 years, Percy felt that he had finally caught a break. And so here they were, driving on a private strip of beach on the South Shore. He wasn't even 16 yet, so driving should be out of the question, right? You worry about the rules too much, haha. Anyway, Rachel and Percy were driving along on a hot day in August. Rachel's red hair was pulled back in a ponytail and she wore a white blouse over her swimsuit. I'd never seen her in anything but ratty t-shirts and paint-splattered jeans before, and she looked like a million golden drachmas. Oh, pull up right there, she said. Percy parked on a ridge overlooking the Atlantic. He always loved the sea, probably because he felt a connection to his godly parent. Today, the sea was especially nice, glittery green and smooth as gel, almost like Poseidon himself calmed the sea just for them. The day was perfect. Almost. So, about the invitation, Rachel asked, ruining the moment. Yeah, of course. Percy tried his best to sound excited. Percy had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Rachel's family had invited him to go on a cruise in the Caribbean. It would have been great, but Percy was essentially on call. Don't get me wrong. Percy's family was well off now with the breaks the family had gotten throughout the years. It was like Tyche herself was making up for all the misfortune that they had experienced throughout the years. Or perhaps it could be that the family is under the god's blessing. You decide. Anyway, they could easily afford stuff like that now, but they were used to the simple lifestyle. And besides, Sally was busy writing her new novel. And the world is ending in a few days. Did I mention that ? Rachel read Percy like an open book. He may have sounded like he was excited, but she knew deep inside he was worried. You're worried about the war, aren't you ? She asked. Rach, I'm sorry, Percy said. I really want to go, I swear. It's just that, the Titan Lord, I don't want to leave my friends to fight him alone. Okay, I can hear you talking in the back there. Why is Percy telling a mortal about what the demigods are now calling the Second Titan War and Kronos of all people, or Titans whatever? Well, for those who are just joining us today, Rachel is a clear-sighted mortal. Which means she can see through the mist, the veil that separates the godly world and the mortal world. She had been there when some demigods were fighting the forces of the Titan Lord. Heck, she had even seen the rise of Kronos himself. I understand, Rachel smiled, but she was just trying to be strong. But if you ever change your mind, give me a call. I just wish I had someone I could be with, my dad. Is he giving you a hard time ? Rachel shook her head in disgust. He's trying to be nice to me, which is almost worse. He wants me to go to Clarion Lass Academy in the fall. The school where your mom went ? It's a stupid finishing school for society girls, all the way in New Hampshire. Can you see me in finishing school ? I have to admit that idea sounds pretty dumb, no offense. Rachel gave him a mock glare and sighed. Don't worry, I agree with you too. But the thing is, he thinks that if he does all these nice things to me, I'll eventually feel guilty and give in. Which is why he agreed to let me come in the first place ? In essence, yes, but you'll be doing me a huge favor if you were with us. Besides, I wanna ask you something important. Her voice trailed off. Percy raised an eyebrow. Something so important that we have to be insane, Thomas, to talk about it ? Rachel pursed her lips. Look, forget about it for now. Let's pretend we're a couple of normal people. We're out for a drive, and we're watching the ocean, and it's nice to be together. Okay, Percy said. Just a normal afternoon and two normal people. She nodded. And sir, hypothetically, if these two people liked each other, what would it take to get the stupid guy to kiss the girl? ? Oh, what would it take, I wonder? Percy smiled playfully. Percy thanked Aphrodite. It didn't take much of a brain to find out what Rachel wanted or what was on her mind. She would practically hand it out on a silver platter. Unlike some girls out there who happen to have a crush on a clueless adopted brother of his. Oh, don't get me started on that kid. For all the brain he had under that mop of yellow hair of his, he is absolutely clueless when it comes to women. Percy had seen girls practically throw themselves at the blonde, and he would still think they were being friendly. It would take someone like Rachel to get through to that guy. Now back to the two lovebirds. I could hear Aphrodite squeal in delight as she watched the two lovebirds. Sea green eyes stared into Rachel's own green orbs. They were slowly inching closer. Unbeknownst to them, a large black figure swooped down and landed on the car's hood, startling the two hormonal teenagers. Sup, boss? Blackjack greeted. Percy's eyes widened. Not by the Pegasus appearance, of course, but by the dents that the said winged horse left on the hood of the Prius. Blackjack, what the? Sup, Percy? Another voice greeted. It was Charles Beckendorf, head counselor of the Hephaestus cabin. Fun story about this guy, he rigged a Greek firebomb in the bathroom of a tour bus that was carrying a bunch of monsters across the country. The explosion took out a whole legion of Kronos' evil meanies as soon as the first harpy went flush. Anyway, Beckendorf was dressed for combat. He wore a bronze plate and war helm with black camo pants and a sword strapped to his side. His explosives bag was slung over his shoulder. Time ? I asked. He nodded grimly. A clump formed in Percy's throat. They had been planning this for weeks now, but deep inside, he was hoping this day would never come. Oh hey, you must be Rachel, Beckendorf introduced himself to the car's other occupant. Percy's told me about you. Rachel raised an eyebrow. Really? Good. Any word on Naruto? Beckendorf asked. Rachel can't get a hold of him. Percy shook his head. He's probably in one of the school's most important games. It can't be helped then, the Hephaestus cabin counselor said. We have to start. Percy sighed. There was no escaping this now. Could you? I'll tell your mom, and I'll explain to Paul the hoof markings on the Prius, and for good measure, Rachel pulled Percy into a short but sweet kiss before he could even react. Now, get going, half-blood. Go off some monsters for me. Rachel watched as a winged black stallion circled into the sky carrying two heavily armed demigods into the next mission. She sighed and tried to contact Naruto one more time. She clicked her tongue in irritation. Where is that boy anyway? It was crunch time. The coach didn't trust Naruto enough to let him into the game. Oh, yes. He watched the viral videos of the NBA game last year, but just like all the others, they wrote it off as a fluke, a 1 in a million fluke. So how did he get in the team? The sports director had been in that very same game where Naruto had shown off his soft. He read the boy correctly. He had seen his great shooting form, his deadly and pinpoint accuracy, his body that showed he had been working hard. When he learned that the very same kid was applying in his same school, he knew he had to get him on the team. Naruto smiled. Kakashi always taught him to always let the enemy underestimate you. He didn't think that it would extend to his allies as well. Well, no matter. Coach, we should let Naruto in, Grayson, the team's captain, suggested. He played with Naruto during the practice games. He knows Naruto's potential. I don't know, we're 10 points behind, the coach answered. This is a very important game for all of us. Please coach, I know he can pull it off, Grayson pleaded. I guarantee it. Alright, I will trust you, the coach relented. Uzumaki, you're up. I won't let you down, coach. Naruto gave him a nice guy pose and walked to wait for the next dead ball. They didn't wait that long. The ball was knocked out of bounds almost immediately. Okay guys, the team huddled before the ball went live. I know you all know how good Naruto is at shooting. And I also know you still have your doubts about him, but for this game, I'm asking you to trust me, trust my decision to bring him into the court. Can I ask you to do that? You got it. We'll get you the ball. Don't let us down. The players told Naruto in different tones of voice. Then the whistle blew. The ball was once again in play. Naruto was slippery. No defender could get in front of him for more than a second. He was staying beyond the arc. His teammates were good. Every possession counted. Every chance they got, they paid the ball to Naruto. He was 10 out of 10 from beyond the arc, but their opponents were good. They were able to answer back with shots of their own. If not, they were able to draw a foul for the 3-point play. 2 minutes later, they were on the ropes. The score was 102-99 in favor of their opponents, 5 seconds left on the clock. Grayson was on the free throw line. He had 2 free throws to get it within striking distance from Naruto's deadly accuracy. First shot, the home team was booing loudly. Grayson had been in this situation before, so he was able to block out all the background noise. But deep inside he was nervous. Their road to the trophy was rough. If they lost this game, they wouldn't even have a shot at the trophy. He let the ball loose. It was in. Second shot, he was praying to any god out there that was listening. He had to make it shot. The boos seemed to be even louder this time. He had to make this shot. He did not want to let his team down. It was a no-go. The big men battled for dominance, but they fell short. The enemy team found an opportunity. One of the guys was already on the other side of the court. The ball was flung for a fast break play. The score was 102-100. They were still behind. Naruto took a deep breath. He was still underestimated. He had to do this for the team. He raced for the ball. Everyone had their eyes wide as he cleared the court in 3 seconds. The guy went for a layup. He wasn't aware of the oncoming danger behind him. As he released the ball from his hands, Naruto was already there ready to slap the ball away. It was a chase down block. With one swift motion, Naruto caught the ball and lobbed the ball. The buzzer sounded a second later. This was the final shot of the game. The crowd was silent as the ball arched through the air. And then, swoosh, the ball was in. The home team was stunned. They were comfortably ahead, but now. It was a comeback. The summer trophy was theirs. Naruto's teammates flooded the court. They carried him on their shoulders and threw him into the air. That was awesome. How did you do that? You've never missed a shot. I don't believe it. Naruto was showered with praises. He smiled. He was getting acknowledged right here and right now. It was what he had been craving for since he was young, and now he couldn't hold back his emotions. They finally put him down. A bit of softy now, aren't you, boy? Grayson whispered into the coach's ear. He's an orphan, coach. That told the coach everything he needed to hear. He patted Naruto on the shoulder. You aren't alone now, boy. Look at your teammates. You are surrounded by your friends. One could argue that you could see them as your family. So wipe away those tears and let's go get that trophy and go celebrate our victory. What do you say? Naruto did as the coach said and beamed out positive energy. You got it, coach. Cheers broke out on the huddled group, and they carried Naruto towards their prize trophy. After the awards ceremony, the team prepared to leave. But a bad feeling suddenly struck him. Oh no, this is bad, he thought to himself. Naruto took a deep breath. He focused on the veil that was around him, the mist. It was similar to a genjutsu, except instead of manipulating the chakra flow in the target's brain, you were manipulating the invisible veil that surrounded the mortals. He snapped his fingers. Everyone in the room adapted dazed expressions. He, then, formed his signature jutsu. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto nodded to the clone, and he disappeared in a golden flash. Two Laestrygonian giants lumbered forward. In their arms was no Beckendorf. Percy yelled with worry at his friend. He was battered and bruised. His eye was swollen shut and there were cuts all over his body. His armor was now gone and his shirt was almost torn off. Beckendorf's eyes met Percy's. A silent conversation went along between the two. Was it possible for the explosives to be already armed? Soon. Kronos scowled at Ethan. Are you sure he didn't set the explosives? He was going toward the engine room, my lord. How do you know that? Ethan shifted uncomfortably. He was heading in that direction. And he told us. His bag is still full of explosives. Percy understood Beckendorf's big brain play. He just had to pray that Kronos would buy the story. Open his bag, Kronos ordered. One of the giants ripped the explosive satchel from Beckendorf's shoulders. He peered inside, grunted, and turned it upside down. Panicked monsters surged backward. But what fell out were a dozen cans of peaches. Kronos took a deep breath, trying to control his anger. Did you, perhaps, he said, capture this demigod near the galley? Ethan turned pale. And did you, perhaps, send someone to actually check the engine room? Ethan scrambled back in terror, then turned on his heels and ran. Percy cursed silently. Now the two of them had only minutes before the bombs were disarmed. He caught Beckendorf's eyes again and asked a silent question, hoping he would understand. How long? He cupped his fingers and thumb, making a circle. 0. There was no delay on the timer at all. If he managed to press the detonator button, the ship would blow at once. There was absolutely no time to get away. Either way, they were both dead, from the monsters or from the detonations. Kronos turned towards the son of Poseidon with a crooked smile. You'll have to excuse my incompetent help, Percy Jackson. But it doesn't matter. We have you now. We've known you were coming for weeks. He held out his hand and dangled a little silver bracelet with a scythe charm, the Titan Lord symbol. Percy winced in pain. He had sustained an injury in his earlier fight. Now, he couldn't think straight, but he managed to mutter, communication device, spy at camp. Kronos chuckled. You can't count on friends. They will always let you down. Luke learned that lesson the hard way. Now drop your sword and surrender to me, or your friend S. Percy swallowed. One of the giants had his hand around Beckendorf's neck. The son of Poseidon was in no shape to rescue Beckendorf, and even if he tried, Charles would before he got to him. We both would. Beckendorf mouthed one word, go. Percy shook his head. He couldn't just leave him. The second giant was still rummaging through the peach cans, which meant Beckendorf's left arm was free. He raised it slowly, toward the watch on his right wrist. I wanted to scream, no. Then down by the swimming pool, one of the Dracaeni hissed, what is he doing? What? Is that on his wrist? Beckendorf closed eyes tight and brought his hand up to his watch. Percy had to act. He knew he could count on Naruto. Any time now, he would be here. Answer, he made his move. He threw his sword like a javelin. It bounced harmlessly off his chest, but it did startle him. I pushed through a crowd of monsters and jumped off the side of the ship, toward the water 100 feet below. A deep rumbling could be heard on the ship. Monsters yelled as the other demigod captive leapt over the edge of the boat. They threw their weapons. A javelin shinked past his ear and an arrow hit him in the thigh. The fireball expanded below deck as Percy. Just as he sank into the sea, he saw an orange blur land on deck and wreaked havoc on the monsters on deck. He smiled. He was fashionably late, but he made it right on time. The next thing he knew, the whole ship erupted in a mighty fireball of green flames, roaring as it consumed the ship. Even though Percy knew his friends were on board, somehow he knew they were safe. He allowed himself to fall into unconsciousness and he sank into the bottom of the ocean. Ogyggia. Calypso stared at the tri-pronged kunai she had hung over her headboard. Time had been out of whack on this island, but he could tell, almost a year had passed since the dashing young hero had made a promise to her. Days passed by pretty quickly. And each day she would find herself staring at the forest green kunai. She had almost lost hope. Until one day, the kunai vibrated. She shot to her feet. It was the first sign of activity the kunai had shown since it was given to her. Then, there was a flash of light. She averted her eyes, thinking that it was a god appearing before her. Just that thought disappointed her. Sure, company from the gods was good once in a while, but she was expecting one blonde in particular. No, not you, Apollo. She turned to look at the newcomer. He was setting down a teen, a demigod for sure, and he had burns all over his body. His guest was no better. He was steaming, probably from fresh burns he had sustained as well. Her eyes widened. That blonde idiot fulfilled his promise, after all. "En Naruto?" She asked, still not believing who or what was in front of her. "Oh hey, Calypso," Naruto greeted back. "Sorry we had to meet in these circumstances." She didn't listen. She rushed forward and wrapped him in a long-awaited embrace. "You really did it. I can't believe it." Naruto smiled and returned the hug. "Like I said, I never go back on my word." Beckendorf groaned from the bed. The two broke their hug. Naruto turned. "Sorry I laid him down without asking. He needs immediate medical attention." Calypso smiled. From the stories Naruto had told him, Naruto was the type to help his friends out no matter what. So what happened to him? Calypso knelt over her bed and examined the boy. Unlike Naruto, who was already fully healed from whatever witchcraft he did, this boy had severe third-degree burns covering almost 75% of his body's surface. "They blew up the Princess Andromeda," Naruto answered. "We almost lost him." For the second time today, Calypso's eyes widened. "You outrun an explosion?" "Oh, I don't know about outrun," Naruto said, scratching the back of his head. "I teleported away." "You did?" Calypso asked. "But that doesn't explain why you were able to find your way back here." I never even thought about it." Naruto looked thoughtful. "I just searched for the flying Raijin formula and found myself here." Calypso studied him. She couldn't quite understand why he was able to detect the strange knife on Ogyggia. "I mean, this boy is mortal with Artemis essence flowing through him. That should be impossible." "That sounds quite about right," Naruto smiled to himself. "I've been defying odds since I was born." "So, what are you going to do now?" Calypso asked, even though she knew what he was going to answer. "I have to go back, there's the war coming," Naruto answered. "But first, I need a favor." "Ask me anything," Calypso said. "Can you take care of him?" Naruto looked at Beckendorf with a worried expression. "Someone's waiting for him back at home." "Of course." Calypso shifted her gaze to the injured boy. "But what about you?" "I gotta fly." Naruto smirked and closed his eyes. Calypso stared at him, waiting for whatever trick Naruto would pull out his hat. They were like that for a few seconds. That was until Naruto panicked. "Oh no. There isn't any flying Raijin formula nearby for miles." The immortal titan giggled and grabbed Naruto's hand. "Come on. I'll take you to the beach. We'll do this the old-fashioned way. Camp Half-Blood." Percy, I'm glad you had made it home, Chiron said as Percy walked into camp. Where's? He's safe, was all Percy said. Silena Beauregard pushed through the crowd. She was a daughter of Aphrodite, but in contrast to what you would see in other children of the love goddess, her hair wasn't combed and her face was natural, but even so, she still looked as beautiful as ever. Are you sure? She asked, grabbing Percy by the shoulders and shook him. He almost didn't make it out alive, but judging by the orange blur, he's bound to be out there, still alive. Percy explained. Annabeth, who was right behind Chiron, pushed towards Percy, orange ? That could only mean, is he okay ? I wouldn't be surprised if he were, Percy shrugged. The daughter of the wisdom goddess was about to demand more from him, but Lee Fletcher, who was ignored on border patrol, came running. I have news. He's made it back. Hey guys. Naruto's voice followed as he strolled back into the campgrounds. Anyone miss me ? Annabeth pushed through the crowd. Her eyes met with Naruto with a big grin on his face. Hey Ann, the girl didn't let him finish. Why do you always insist on making me worry ? She scolded as she broke the embrace. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. Well, I can't let their quest fail, can I ? Silena walked up to the pair. She just had to make sure. Is Charlie okay ? His condition is critical, but he will live. I have full trust in Calypso, Naruto explained. Calypso ? You went back to Ogygia ? Annabeth raised her eyebrows. Naruto, no mortal has ever returned to Ogygia twice. It is part of the island's curse. Naruto adopted a serious expression. That's the thing. I don't know how I did it, but it happened. I was able to find my way back through the flying Raijin. Everyone was shocked. It was just as Annabeth had said. So how? We shall make sense of this later. Chiron stomped his hoof, getting everyone's attention. Now that we have confirmed that Charles Beckendorf is alive, we shall leave it to Calypso to nurse him back to health. On our end, I'm afraid we have some grave news. He eyed Percy when he said that, who gave him a nod in response. We shall convene a war council immediately. The war council started with Percy recounting the events of the recently concluded quest. Percy left out some details, of course, like a vision he had of Nico D'Angelo reminding him of the super dangerous expedition they had talked about during his 15th birthday. The son of Hades made him promise to keep it a secret until he had decided. Zoe Nightshade was also at the council. Before they came here, Zoe had given him a thorough scolding about his recklessness. All in all, his sister was glad to see him safe. At the war council, the immortal huntress gave him a signal. Naruto understood it, so he relayed his own piece of grave news. He told them about the unleashing of the father of all monsters. He deeply apologized to the other counselors, and blamed himself for the primordial. His friends consoled him, and reiterated that it wasn't his fault. I see, Chiron mused as the dreadful account was finished. Our situation is as dire as I thought. There's one more thing, Percy said. My father told me it is time. Chiron nodded. He turned to Annabeth and said, my girl, if you would be a dear. As the two demigods left, Clarisse stood, I still stake claim on the chariot. We have just as much right as they have. I understand how you feel. Lee Fletcher lashingly stood up and calmly walked up to the angry girl. But we retrieved the loot, so we have the bigger claim over the loot. Oh, here we go, Katie Gardiner said under her breath as the argument was once again reignited. The argument went back and forth. Pretty soon, insults were also hurled against each other. Silena Beauregard tried to break up the fight, now that the news of Beckendorf's survival reached her. Despite her efforts, it was to no avail. Kakashi sighed. He remembered all the genin teams that had died just because of moments like this, especially in the field during war times. This was definitely not a good time. Percy and Annabeth returned quickly after receiving his prophecy and was greeted with the ongoing shouting match. Gods, is this still going on ? Annabeth raised her voice. Why not settle your differences after the war is over? I'm afraid that isn't an option, Pollux said. Clarisse is set on resolving the issue before the war starts. She refuses to speak to any of us until then. It's in 3 days. It's been a wonderful 3 days, Travis said sarcastically. Clarisse then turned to Chiron, you're in charge here. Does the Ares cabin get what it wants or not? Like I said, dear girl, The Apollo cabin has the bigger claim on the chariot. Besides, there are more important matters. Clarice scoffed. Important matters? I guess the needs of my cabin are not important at all. And you expect us to show up and fight just like that? Maybe Mr. D would. Lord Dionysus, our director, is busy with the war. He cannot be bothered with petty squabbles such as this, Chiron interrupted, now with an angry tone. I see, Clarice said. She looked in the eyes of each cabin counselor. How about you ? Will any of you side with me ? Naruto raised his hand. It can be argued that the Apollo cabin would not be able to retrieve the chariot without the Ares cabin's help. It's just as Clarice said, their cabin has just as much right as the Apollo cabin. Lee Fletcher gave Naruto a look of hurt. He wasn't expecting his own cousin to side with the Ares cabin, the bullies of camp. Naruto met his gaze. The same goes for you as well. Lee Fletcher sighed and lazed on the swivel chair. I still think it belongs to us. Clarice calmed down, but her voice still had a hint of venom. He gave Naruto a grateful look and the others a scornful one. Fine. Naruto and Silena, I'm sorry, but I cannot, in good faith, join the war with you unless the Ares cabin gets the recognition and appreciation we deserve. The rest of you can go out and for all I care. My cabin is not lifting a finger. Are you sure this is wise for you to do, Ares girl ? Zoe berated the Ares cabin counselor. Are you going to leave your comrades here to ? Clarice scoffed. Wise ? That's rich coming from the group who burned down cabins. So if you're not with me, shut up and let me leave in peace. You can go for all I care. She threw her knife on the table and left the room. Fine, go ahead, Lee Fletcher said lashingly. Are you kidding ? Katie Gardner protested. We're doomed without them, even with Mr. Kakashi's training. Is she serious ? Travis asked nervously. Chiron sighed. Her pride has been wounded. She'll calm down eventually. But he didn't sound convinced. Now if you please, counselors. Percy has brought something I think you should hear. Percy, the great prophecy. Annabeth handed Percy the parchment, a dry and old piece of paper that felt like it would rip if you hastily and clumsily opened it. Through nervous hands, he opened the parchment without actually making a tear. And so he began to read. A half-blood child of the eldest gods, shall turn 16 against all odds, and see the world in endless sleep. The hero's soul, cursed blade shall reap. A single choice shall end his days. Olympus to pursue, preserve or raise. Raise, Travis perked up. That's a good thing, right ? It's obviously R-A to Z-E. It means to destroy, Silena corrected. The worry for her friend Clarice was evident in her voice. Oh, got it, that soured the mood even more. Everyone was looking at him with pity or even fear. Naruto though looked at his adoptive brother with a look of concern. Chiron shifted nervously. You see now, Percy, why we thought it best not to tell you the whole prophecy. You've had enough on your shoulders. Without thinking I was going to anyway ? The boy in question said. Yeah, I get it. We've been dealing with prophecies for years now, Naruto said. You should know that prophecies always have double meanings. Jake Mason, Beckendorf's second in command, spoke up. Maybe we can change it ? We could find this cursed blade and destroy it. Percy's pen seemed to burn him in his pocket. Didn't you have warnings about going against prophecies ? Kakashi warned. In any case, we should leave it to Percy to think about these lines, Chiron said. He needs time. No. He folded up the prophecy and shoved it into his pocket. He felt angry. There's no time. If we can't worry about the little things. Besides, we have a war to fight. That's the spirit, Naruto smiled. Although I prefer that you weren't dead, water boy. Percy smiled and his eyes met with Annabeth. I'd prefer it if you weren't an idiot all of the time, but we all don't get what we want. What's that supposed to mean ? Naruto asked. Silena finally smiled. He had watched Annabeth and Naruto's interaction throughout the years, and he found Naruto so cute when he was being oblivious like that, not as cute as her darling Charlie though. Oh, nothing, the son of Poseidon smirked. You'll understand when you're older. Naruto grumbled, but Chiron cleared his throat, shifting the conversation back to the topic at hand. Oh right, Percy said. Man, being ADHD is tough. Okay, moving on. The spy at camp. The smile faded from Selena's face. She started fidgeting. This had not gone unnoticed to the two shinobi in the room. Lee Fletcher scowled. We've suspected there was one for years, right? They somehow knew about the Golden Fleece's location. The other missions we had when war started. If it weren't for Mr. Kakashi, we would have d. If they were feeding Luke information, then it most likely is someone who was close to him. His eyes moved unconsciously to Annabeth. You couldn't blame him for his suspicion. Annabeth and Luke had been traveling for years, and they even came to camp together. It could be anyone, Zoe said. Yeah, like one of his siblings, Katie Gardiner said. She still held some resentment for the Easter bunnies that the two Hermes cabin counselors decorated on the Demeter cabin roof. Hey, what's that supposed to mean? Travis and Connor shouted indignantly. Arguments started. Naruto slammed his fist on the table. He released a bit of pressure which froze his fellow counselors. This is not the time to be arguing. Pollux nodded. He's right. There is no use accusing each other. In any case, we should keep an eye out for a scythe charm. The spy might have one on him too. We need to draw up more plans, Annabeth spoke. Even with the Princess Andromeda blown up, it won't stop them forever. No, indeed, Chiron agreed. In fact, the next attack is already on its way. Naruto tensed. He's finally out now, isn't he? Dad mentioned a bigger threat. Is this it? Percy asked. Naruto, this is the reason why we allowed you to complete your summer tournament, Chiron explained. I see, Naruto said. So, what's the current status? Chiron picked up a bronze goblet from the snack table. He tossed water onto the hot plate where they usually melted nacho cheese. Steam billowed up, making a rainbow in the fluorescent lights. Chiron fished a golden drachma out of his pouch, tossed it through the mist, and muttered, "O Iris, goddess of the rainbow, show us the threat." The mist shimmered. The group was shown the familiar image of a smoldering volcano, Mount St. Helens. The side of the mountain exploded. Fire, ash, and lava rolled out. A newscaster's voice was saying, even larger than last year's eruption, and geologists warn that the mountain may not be done. So, he's finally free, Zoe said. She pointed to the Iris message. There was a giant vaguely humanoid form roaring in rage and moving as if breaking unseen chains. Typhon, Naruto muttered under his breath. That is correct, Chiron nodded. The most horrible monster of all, the biggest single threat that the gods have ever faced. This, here, is a scene from 2 days ago. Here is what is happening today. Chiron waved his hand and the image changed. There was a bank of storm clouds rolling across the Midwest plains. Lightning flickered. Lines of tornadoes destroyed everything in their path, ripping up houses and trailers, tossing cars around like matchbox toys. Monumental floods, an announcer was saying. 5 states declared disaster areas as the freak storm system sweeps east, continuing its path of destruction. The cameras zoomed in on a column of storm bearing down on some unknown Midwest city. Inside the storm, the counselors could see the giant, just small glimpses of his true form, a smoky arm, a dark clawed hand the size of a city block. His angry roar rolled across the plains like a nuclear blast. Other smaller forms darted through the clouds, circling the monster. There were flashes of light, and the giant was trying to swat them. Naruto tensed. The giant roared and slammed on the ground. A gazelle danced around the fist and avoided it gracefully. Carson, Naruto said worriedly. Zoe placed a hand on his shoulder in comfort. She, too, was worried for her immortal mistress. How long do we have? Naruto asked. Unless the gods can stop him, 5 days, Chiron said. And if the gods slow him down? A week at best. Naruto sucked in his teeth. He gave a look of determination. Chiron, I have to go back to the elemental nations. And what might you want to accomplish? Chiron asked. Back in the Third Great Shinobi World War, the Yondaime Hokage fought a shinobi who had command of his tailed beast. They called him a perfect Jinchuriki. Naruto narrated. I have to track down the man and learn from him. It's the only way we could stand a chance. Annabeth looked at Naruto in worry. This was the first she was hearing of this. She put 2 and 2 together. You're not thinking of fighting him yourself, are you? That was the plan, Naruto nodded. I'm coming with you, Annabeth demanded. It would be very dangerous, the shinobi warned. And if it's his recklessness you are worried about, I will accompany him, Zoe spoke up. You guys, Naruto gave his friends a grateful look. They looked like there was no discussion on this matter. Chiron sighed. We are pressed with options here. Do what you think is best. But with Lord Dionysus busy with the war, how will you get there? If the flying Raijin can break through the veil hiding Ogaija from the rest of the world, then we can probably teleport to the elemental nations, Naruto wondered aloud. With the plan set, they adjourned the meeting. The campers filed out of the rec room. Silena was lagging behind. She turned a corner, unknown to her she was being followed. So, I didn't know the Aphrodite cabin was this way, Naruto sneaked up behind her, causing her to jump. Naruto ? She turned back in surprise. What are you doing here ? You know, talking about the spy earlier, you were being, suspicious, Naruto said. I. Judging by the elevated heart rate you had earlier and blood rushing to your ears, I'm guessing there is some kind of guilt here. I don't know what you're talking about, she tried to feign ignorance. Naruto inched forward causing her to back away. She continued backing up until she hit a wall. You know, I learned a thing or two about getting the truth from someone. And this matter involves the camp, so I'd really like to know about it. The shinobi reached for the necklace under her shirt, causing the color to drain from her face. The leather necklace was lifted out, revealing her beads representing how long she had stayed at camp. In addition to that, there was a scythe charm attached to it. I guess you were right, Kakashi-sensei, Naruto smirked. Kakashi came out of the shadows. Ara, now what do we do with you ? Silena broke down. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, for Charlie too, she bawled her eyes out that night. How did this happen ? Naruto asked. Before Luke left camp, before Charlie and I started dating, Luke charmed me into spying for him. When he left the spell was broken, but he threatened to reveal everything to everyone if I betrayed him, and now, Charlie was injured because of me. Naruto sighed. Even when he's not at camp, he's still causing trouble. So, what do we do now ? Kakashi asked. Naruto's face slowly morphed into a mischievous smile. Don't worry, I'm not mad at you. We'll keep this from everyone. That was what he said, but something about that mischievous smile and the suspicious gleam in his eye unnerved her. She felt sorry for whoever was on the receiving end of Naruto's latest diabolic plan. Naruto took the scythe from her and sent her on her way. Rachel was standing in her room. Well, I say it was a room, but it was actually the top floor of her family's mansion, which is a renovated brownstone in Brooklyn. It was a huge loft with industrial lighting and floor-to-ceiling windows. Alt rock blared from her paint-covered Bose docking system. The girl in question wore a kimono, and her hair was frizzy, like she'd been sleeping. Her bed was messed up. Sheets hung over a lot of artists' easels in her room. Only one of them was exposed. Dirty clothes and old energy bar wrappers were strewn around the floor. Unlike Percy's room, the mess didn't look too bad because of the size of the room. Out the windows you could see the entire nighttime skyline of Manhattan, a view that Naruto and Percy had come to appreciate when they moved into their new apartment. She threw a dart at one of the paintings. It was a painting of Percy standing over Antaeus with a fierce expression on his face. Demigods and their stupid quests. Rachel muttered as she threw another dart at the canvas. Most of the darts bounced off, but a few stuck. One of the darts hung off Percy's chin like a goatee. Someone pounded on her bedroom door. Rachel. A man shouted. What in the world are you doing ? Turn off that. Rachel scooped up her remote control and shut off the music. Come in. Her dad walked in, scowling and blinking from the light. He had rust-colored hair a little darker than Rachel's. It was squished on one side like he'd lost a fight with his pillow. His blue silk pajamas had WD monogrammed on the pocket. What is going on ? He demanded. It's 3 in the morning. Couldn't sleep, Rachel said. On the painting, the dart fell off. Rachel hid the rest behind her back, but Mr. Dare noticed. So, I take it your friend isn't coming to St. Thomas ? Rachel knit her eyebrows. I don't know. We leave in the morning, her dad said. If he hasn't made up his mind yet. He's probably not coming, Rachel said miserably. Happy ? Mr. Dare put his hands behind his back. He paced the room with a stern expression. Are you still having bad dreams? He asked. Headaches? Rachel threw her darts on the floor. I should never have told you about that. I'm your father, he said. I'm worried about you. Worried about the family's reputation, Rachel muttered. Her father didn't react. All he said was, we could call Dr. Arkwright. He helped you get through the death of your hamster. I was 6 then, she said. And no, Dad, I don't need a therapist. She shook her head helplessly. Her father stopped in front of the windows. He gazed at the New York skyline as if he owned it. It will be good for you to get away, he decided. You've had some unhealthy influences. I'm not going to Clarion Lass Academy, Rachel said. And my friends are none of your business. Mr. Dare smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was more like, someday you'll realize how silly you sound. Try to get some sleep, he urged. We'll be at the beach by tomorrow night. It will be fun. Fun, Rachel repeated. Lots of fun. Her father exited the room. He left the door open behind him. Rachel stared at the portrait. Then she walked to the easel next to it. I hope the dreams, she said. She uncovered the easel. The picture was definitely Luke as a young boy. He was about 9 years old, with a wide grin and no scar on his face. She moved to the next easel. It was a picture of a live fox with 9 tails, a giant 8-tailed bull, roaring at an oncoming storm, and an enormous 2-tailed cat. The 3 of them were roaring at an oncoming storm. On the final easel was probably the most disturbing out of the others. It showed the Empire State Building with lightning all around it. In the distance a dark storm was brewing, with a huge hand coming out of the clouds. At the base of the building a crowd had gathered. It definitely wasn't a tourist crowd as there were spears, javelins, and banners, the trappings of an army. She stared at the other covered easels. She thought of the other drawings she still had covered. There were portraits of people that she didn't even know, performing feats that no normal human is able to perform. She shook her head. Asking no one in particular, she said, what do all these mean? The next morning, breakfast started just as usual, as normal as the grim atmosphere would allow them. Despite the looming war, the campers still saw it to a point to maintain the status quo. Regular training still resumed and was taken up a notch by Kakashi, who was called sadistic by the campers. The regular camp activities were replaced by war preparations, and capture the flag was replaced by practicing scenarios for the war. After breakfast, Naruto joined Annabeth for cabin inspections. It was the daughter of Athena's most hated task, so the blonde shinobi offered to join her on her rounds to keep her company, while he sifted through reports from satyrs across the country. Annabeth appreciated this gesture a lot. They started at cabin 3, Percy's cabin. What happened to cabins 1 and 2? You ask? Well, cabin 2 is honorary, while cabin 1 was occupied recently by Talia Grace after she was revived by the Golden Fleece. Then, it went back to becoming honorary when she left camp to join the Hunters of Artemis. Anyway, Naruto knocked on Poseidon's cabin. The 2 cabin inspectors heard shuffling coming from the inside. It looks like Percy forgot that there were cabin inspections today. After a full minute of waiting, the door opened. Hey guys, Percy greeted them. You forgot, didn't you? Naruto asked. Of course not, Percy hastily denied. Naruto smirked. Right, so, let's see. Your cabin's fairly clean. I gotta say, this is looking better than your room back in the apartment. I'll give you a 3 out of 5. What? Why so low? Percy protested. You missed a spot, seaweed brain. Annabeth rolled her eyes. Come on, Percy complained. I don't have Tyson to clean the cabin. Annabeth and Naruto gave him a deadpan look. You should at least know how to clean your own room. I know, I'm working on it. As the cabin inspectors moved through each of the cabins, Naruto browsed the reports as they walked. The reports sounded grim. Little battles were raging everywhere. Camp recruitment was down to 0. Satyrs were having trouble finding new demigods and bringing them to Half-Blood Hill because so many monsters were roaming the country. Our friend Talia Grace, who led the Hunters of Artemis, hadn't been heard from in months, making Zoe and Naruto worry about their sisters. The Aphrodite cabin was next on the list. Selena opened the door and greeted the inspectors. She looked at Naruto awkwardly, making Annabeth suspicious. Naruto told her that there was nothing to worry about. Inspecting the cabin, they found that the beds were perfectly made. The clothes in everyone's footlockers were color coordinated. Fresh flowers bloomed on the windowsills. And the whole cabin smelled like designer perfume. Naruto wanted to give them 4 out of 5 due to the strong odor of the perfume, but Annabeth disagreed and still gave them full marks. Great job as usual, Annabeth praised. After marking their score in her sheet, she asked how the girl was doing. I'm managing, I just wish I was right by Charlie's side while he recuperates, she answered. Don't worry, Naruto tried to ease her worries. Beckendorf would make a full recovery. That's a promise. Selena smiled. Naruto, I can never thank you enough. Don't mention it, Naruto grinned and gave her a thumbs up. As the pair made their way to the next cabin, the Apollo and Ares cabins were at it again. Arrows were flying everywhere. Curses were exchanged. The Ares campers were rhyming. The Apollo campers' arrows turned to rubber. There was chaos everywhere. Annabeth explained that they were bickering over a chariot that the 2 cabins had retrieved from a mission to sabotage Luke's forces. Apparently, the Apollo kids seized it, while the Ares kids led the raid. Annabeth growled in frustration. She gave the 2 warring cabins each a 1 on their cabin ratings. They moved on to the rest. Demeter got a 4, they treated cleaning as they tended wheat, neat and organized. Hephaestus got a 3 and probably should have gotten lower, but considering the news about their brother's injury, they cut the kids some slack. Hermes got a 2, which was no surprise. All campers who didn't know the godly parentage were shoved into the Hermes cabin, and since the gods were kind of forgetful, that cabin was always overcrowded. Finally, the Athena cabin. It was orderly and clean as usual. Books were straightened on the shelves. The armor was polished. Battle maps and blueprints decorated the walls. Only Annabeth's bunk was messy. It was covered in papers, and her silver laptop was still running. Vlackers, Annabeth cursed herself for doing a sloppy job at organizing on her own desk. Malcolm grinned upon seeing the 2. Annabeth blushed at the silent insinuation, but Naruto just returned the grin. After they were done, the 2 waved goodbye to Annabeth's siblings. With both their jobs done, they trekked to the big house to submit their reports. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.